So last we left off, as I had mentioned, you were currently standing outside the recently attacked watch station of the Apayan Guard, and the as we called them, the SWAT team of the Apayan Guard, heavily armored and armed, had recently gone in. Basically, did a battering ram job on the front door. Went in, cleared the place, and came back and reported that there was no more threat that they could determine, and that possibly as many as a dozen people had perished inside, judging by the remains, which you've already seen, which takes the form of piles of clothing and belongings, whatever it is that the person was wearing, seemingly dissolved into a greasy sort of aromatic cloud of smoke, of sort of gray smoke. And this, you've witnessed this phenomenon up close and personal, so you know pretty much exactly what they're talking about. Remember, that was the guard from the main reception room, correct?
Yep.
He was the one that you had found seemingly unconscious in the front room, who was barricading the front door with his body. You determined that he was unconscious at the time, in front of a burning corpse, a corpse that was on fire in the main reception room, and he's reported to be the only person that survived, other than, of course, you and Rykor and the other two guardsmen that were with you on the rooftop. So that's where you stand now. Rykor, Inquisitor Captain Rykor Neverlorn is on one side of you, and on the other is your new acquaintance, the Priest of Ea, Hezekiah Valavar, who you've just met minutes before.
Remember, I have 1 level of exhaustion to my credit right now.
Correct.
Yay. So all of my rolls are going to be fabulous. How does lucky work when you have levels of exhaustion? Do you get to reroll both dice?
One level of exhaustion, which is what you have right now, works, is all your skill checks are at disadvantage. So if you were to use the lucky on one of those skill checks, it would just cancel out and be a straight roll.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, Rykor. You ready, sir?
Certainly. I suppose we should get this over with. And Hezekiah just kind of nods, and he's got kind of a smirk on his face for no particular reason that you can tell. He just seems, maybe that's his natural expression. He's got resting smirk face. You don't know. you just met him, so but yeah, he's definitely got kind of a sort of a smirk on his face at the moment.
Resting smirk face. It's gonna be a thing now. All right, I'm gonna start wandering in. I'm gonna have Monty with me. Does Monty have points of exhaustion too?
He would, yeah.
All right. He doesn't really do a lot of rolls though.
Yeah. I don't think he put much on the skill check necessarily. Maybe perception. That would be about.
I start getting towards the building and entering the building.
And Rykor kind of strides in. He takes the lead and just kind of walks in. Well, I think perhaps the best thing to do would be to take a quick survey and get the lay of the land. Let's find out, if we can, where the unfortunate casualties are. Well, while we do that, I'll sketch a brief map and see if we can glean anything from the locations.
Sounds good, sir.
Let's begin. I suppose I'll lead the way since, after all, I am familiar with this building, and I don't think either of the two of you are. And he heads down into the hallways. So you walk into the, you're walking in through the main door. So you're walking into that large reception area that you've been in already, where the desk is on one side. You've got the charred corpse is still there in the middle of the floor, no longer on fire, but the charred body is still there. And it's basically like a lump of person-shaped charcoal at this point. They have outlined it with some of that red rope that you remember using up on the roof, the red cord. So they've actually created an outline of coiled rope, kind of like a chalk outline, but not with chalk, it's with the rope. And they've kind of surrounded the corpse with that rope, and it's just laying there, kind of pretty much just exactly where you remember it being.
Okay.
And Rykor pulls what looks like a sort of a leather-bound journal, thin, not very large, just kind of pocket-sized. He pulls it out of a pocket in his coat and starts taking notes in it. He looks like he's probably drawing that map that you talked about. Goes over, kneels down next to the charred body. He kind of looks it over for just kind of visually inspects it and kind of waves to you to come over and join him. Give me a hand, would you? I'd like to turn the body over a bit and see what, if anything, is under it.
Okay. All right. I sit next to him and follow his lead.
Before he actually goes and takes hold of the body, do you know who this was by any chance? Was this a guardsman? Did you get a good look at
Reflecting back when I came through the building when it was not on fire. When he was on fire, I originally saw him before his skin was white.
Correct.
Did he look like a guardsman?
It looked like he probably was originally a guardsman, yes.
I'm pretty sure he was a guardsman. When I came through here the first time with Rykor, he had not transformed, and then he did transform and was all white and pasty and not good looking and on fire. He looked like he was dead from what I could tell when I left the room the first time.
Well, he definitely appears to still be dead.
Mm-hmm.
Very well. You lift at that end, and I'll lift at this end, and just flip him over on one side so that we can. We'll basically tip him up on one side, and we can look under him.
Okay.
All right. So you do that. Kind of comes unstuck from the floor a little bit. It's kind of
gross.
It's kind of gross. And Valavar kind of looks under, runs his hand along the floor underneath real quick. All right, set it down.
Setting down.
Well, that's interesting. He doesn't. I'm curious as to why this body is mostly intact. I mean, it's obviously burned, but still. It's not a puff of smoke as the other ones were reported to be. That's curious, don't you think?
It is curious. I adopt his lingo.
It seems the fire may have some sort of effect. I mean, that's the only difference that I can see. Well, perhaps some further clues will present themselves. And we can figure that out.
Random thought, Hezekiah, I said that right. What do you think about maybe putting some of these ashes in a jar to examine them later?
Well, we'll be taking the entire body once we're done with our inspection.
Truth. All right, cool. Moving on. Next body.
More than likely, I'm going to do a full autopsy.
Okay.
Would you care to join us for that?
Sure.
All right. Once we get done, we'll I'm probably going to try to do that as soon as possible after the survey of this building is done. So I'd like to get back to the Abbey as soon as possible. One only knows what they get up to in my absence down there. Moving on. Captain, have you finished with your note taking? And Rykor kind of looks up. Yes, that's good enough for now. Shall we continue?
Ready.
Very well. And he leads you through the doors that lead out of this room that are opposite the main entrance. Find yourself back in that maze of kind of cubbies and cubicles and hallways that you were stumbling through in the darkness just the previous night. And it kind of gives you a little bit of the heebie-jeebies being back in here, even though it's not nighttime anymore and it's no longer pitch black. Some lanterns have been lit and hung on the walls, and it looks like there's a few of them probably just wandering around, kind of keeping an eye on things. So it's no longer deserted. There's no longer deep shadows that in here that threaten to have strange monsters pop out of them at any moment. It seems very normal now, but it still kind of gives you the heebie-jeebies a little bit.
I don't trust it.
And you proceed through, and you do indeed eventually tally up a count of 11 bodies, just piles of clothing and belongings and so forth. There's no longer any smoke. The smell that you had noted the previous night lingers. So it's that sort of greasy, burning smell combined with almost a lemony type of floral scent. But that kind of lingers in the air whenever you get close to one of these sad little piles of clothing. They're kind of all over the place. They're mostly in hallways. You find a few of them in offices. Some of the offices kind of look like they were ransacked a little bit. You're assuming it was by these creatures. So it looks like some of offices may have been broken into and kind of just tossed. But most of them are found in hallways in various places. And Rykor eventually says, well, I think we've been over pretty much every square inch of this place. I count 11. We're going to have to go through all of the various pockets and folds of all of this clothing if we're going to actually identify everyone. We can do that a bit later. That's sort of a punishment task, I guess, that we can put some of our more junior personnel on.
Right, Core, I have an idea.
All right, what's that?
So in my priesthood, one of the things that we were taught were particular arcane ways to detect evil and goodness. And I'm wondering if there was an evil entity here, because obviously this was an evil deed. Would you like me to try to cast a spell to see if I can pick up anything?
You want to cast Dispel Evil or Detect Evil?
Detect evil.
Okay. Let me see. Rykor,
For some random reason, I decided to put it on my thing.
Rykor doesn't have a problem with that. Let me take a look at the spell here. Okay, so it will let you detect aberrations, celestials, elementals, fae, fiends, or undead within 30 feet of you.
Yep.
Or if there is a place or object within 30 feet of you that has been consecrated or desecrated. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It might not be helpful, but it makes me feel important.
You said concentration up to 10. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I certainly anything that you think might be helpful. This is certainly an area more of your expertise, and Hezekiah's, then mine. So please, whenever you have an idea.
Okay. So Torin's gonna kneel down on the ground and take out a piece of charcoal on the ground, and he's gonna mark a little of my the not the tricorn but the trident hammer. Pull out some strange dust from either of my pockets, rub it together, and blow it in the air. Then do the detect evil and good. And I'm gonna follow where the wind or my breath goes, and then go room to room quickly because I only got 10 minutes.
You complete your casting, and as you're where you're standing currently, you've kind of come full circle. So you're kind of back you're in one of the hallways that's just outside of the main reception area. So you basically made one big circle and come back to where you began. Where you're standing, you don't get anything. You don't sense anything from right where you are.
Okay.
Rykor says, there is one thing that I wanted to check that didn't have to do with surveying the dead. If you want to follow me, I'd like to look. The body that we brought in from the cemetery had belongings that I don't think we ever searched through. They're still in the examination room.
Okay.
I'd like to go take a look at that. Would the two of you care to join me? And Hezekiah just kind of nods his head. He's still got that same strange smirk on his face.
Yep. Let's go.
Very well. Come this way. And he heads off down the hallway. And you head back and you kind of begin to sort of remember little bits and pieces of where you're going. And you remember this particular path. This is the way that you came to get to the supply room, where you grabbed the flasks of lamp oil. And you remember, you looked through one of the doors of the supply room and you saw the room with the metal table, and you saw on the metal table there were some heaps of cloth, and like you saw the burlap sackcloth that the body from the cemetery was transported in. So you remember seeing that through the doorway of the supply room, and you're headed back in that. You sense a desecration ahead of you.
Wait up, guys.
You're very close to an area that's been desecrated.
You tell them to wait for a second and walk ahead.
They both stop, and they don't say anything. They just kind of are looking at you intently. You can still sense it. It's coming from pretty much directly ahead of you. And you see the doorway, and you can see it's an open doorway, and you can see the supply room that you are familiar with through the doorway.
So something's been desecrated in here, and I don't know what it is yet. Keep your eyes open.
Valavar says, "Can you desecrated? How exactly?"
I'm unsure. I have to get closer to get a better look of what's going on.
Very
Do you have
well.
any ideas?
Rykor pulls out the short sword that he's got at his side. And you see Hezekiah pulls out a long, probably like a almost 2-foot long dagger that he's got. Actually, it's up one of his sleeves. And he pulls it, he just kind of slides it out. And you just hear it go.
That's funny.
And he just kind of pulls it out and holds it in one hand.
I'll pull my spear out because you never know when you need a spear for something.
So they're waiting on you. They stopped when you asked them to stop, and they're just kind of watching you.
Gonna open the door a little bit with the tip of my spear, just in case it's not open all the way.
It's like about halfway open, so you can see into the room. If you want to hit it with your spear and open it all the way, that's easy enough. It just kind of and hits the wall hits the wall that it's backed up against.
I will step in the doorway. Am I picking up direction?
So, yep, the supply room looks pretty much the way you left it when you came down to get the lamp oil. Nothing seems to be different in here, but now that you're standing in the room, again, straight through on the other side of the room, you can see the door that opens up, and you can kind of you can just see the edge of that metal table through the crack that this door is open, and the sensation of sort of this malign energy is coming from that direction.
Probably safe to say that it's not coming from the supply room around me. It's probably all coming from the other room.
Coming from through that door, yes.
All right, I'm gonna communicate that to Rygor, and proceed to the other room and stand in the doorway.
Rykor says, he just kind of mutters under his breath, we brought the damn thing right into the watch station. And he kind of trails behind you as you go. Are you opening the door, or?
Yes, I opened the door with my spear. Sorry.
Yep. So this door creaks open as well, and you see again the scene that you had observed last night. So it's the examination room. There's a metal table kind of right in the center, and then I don't know that you got a really good look at this room last night, but there's
I don't think so.
There's the metal table right in the middle of the room, and then on either side on the wall, attached to the walls, there are full-length metal shelves that look like they could also be tables as well, but they're built into either wall.
Okay.
There's another door leading out on the opposite wall. And there's a pile of different types of cloth on top of the metal table. So there's the burlap sackcloth that you saw very clearly last night. There's another pile of what looks like kind of wadded up clothing at the end of the metal table. This is definitely where that sensation is coming from. This room.
Okay. Is there so when the people that turned into unknown and clothing was left, it was left in kind of an organized pile so that you knew somebody was probably in there. Is there anything like that in this room?
No. Not the bodies that dissolved into smoke, you mean?
Yeah.
No, this pile of clothing that you see is wadded up, and it's basically is as if they were removed and just kind of tossed to the side is kind of what it looks like.
Gesture them to come in.
Okay. They kind of come up right behind you.
So it is the source of this is in this room. Can I pinpoint it any closer to anything in particular?
Sure. If you'd like to go into the room and kind of walk around, if you just make like a circle, do you want to go ahead and do that? And
yes.
so you just walk around the room. You can tell it's coming from the table.
It's coming from the table. So you said you brought in a body here yesterday, Rykor?
Yes, we did. It was a bit of a scene, actually. We discovered a body. The guardsmen who were in charge of patrolling the cemetery one night ago now at dawn. So dawn one day ago now. It seems like a very long night, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
They discovered that there was a body in the cemetery. After an investigation of the location, the body was brought back here to be examined in the examination room. More than likely, Lord Valivar here was going to be called to do the examination and autopsy on this body. But of course, as we all know, that didn't happen.
Anything remaining to your knowledge of the body that came in? Like, what happens to the bodies after you guys put them on the table and look at them? Where do they go?
Well, it all depends on whose body it is, I suppose. If it were a citizen of Blackshore, they would be perhaps returned to their next of kin or buried in the cemetery. That's usually what happens with victims of foul play or even people who die of natural causes here. This person, one of the reasons he was brought back to the examination room is because we don't know who he was. He was an unidentified victim of foul play.
I'm gonna run my hands on the table just in case there's any residue or something that's there that would be good for me to know. Just to be tactile and to see if there's anything that's worth knowing.
Okay. Make an investigation check.
Disadvantage. Yeah, I know. Take that disadvantage. I got a 19 and a 20, so
Oh,
F that
shit.
nonsense. It's mine.
Nice.
All ones. Rest of the day. I'm proud of that. This better be good.
So on the table itself doesn't seem to yield anything of particular interest. It's actually fairly clean. There doesn't seem to be any type of like residue or fluid or anything weird like that. As you're kind of running your hands around though, and kind of your attention is kind of taken by the table. But as you're examining, then kind of brushes up against the pile of clothing, and you feel there's something hard in there, not cloth. Your hand kind of just bumps up against it, and you're like, oh, well, that's not cloth. You want to go through the clothing?
I want to do so not using my hands though. So like I have like a spear and a dagger just to kind of like move things around.
Kind of tongue and pincers that up a little bit.
Yep, just in case.
Kind of do like a tossed salad thing a little bit with the pile of clothing, and immediately out falls a piece of what looks like metal chain, maybe a necklace, and it goes clank 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 on the surface of the metal table. Falls right out of the clothing pretty quickly before you've even done too much prodding of it. And kind of as it clanks on the table, Rykor and Hezekiah just kind of immediately perk up and are like, what's that? And there's now a linked chain. Almost kind of the first thing it reminds you of, just kind of immediately, is a dog collar.
This is, I assume this probably was on the dead guy somewhere, otherwise it wouldn't be in the cloth.
Yes, I would imagine that he was wearing it or carrying it on his person. That would be the only reason I can think of for it to be included in the pile that's on that table. Yeah, one of the first things that's done when a body is brought here is that their clothing is removed. It looks like it wasn't. Usually it would be moved into the storeroom, but it looks like we didn't get that far.
I wonder if Oxnard would recognize and be able to tell us if the person was wearing this or if he didn't see it at all.
Oxnard, I don't think had any contact with the body other than seeing it go by. The the investigating watchman who examined the body, or examined the scene, I should say, in the cemetery, I suspect are among the dead. So we can't ask them.
I'm gonna move it with the chain with my spear towards the other healer with us. And what do you make of this? Does it look like anything to you?
Well, I would expect that metalwork would be more your area of specialty. It looks like a necklace to me.
Are there any inscriptions or anything on it that I can see without actually physically touching it?
Okay, so you kind of get close to it and look at it carefully. Make a perception check. Disadvantage.
Yep. Perception, so that would be an 11 for me.
You don't notice any inscriptions, but 11 is high enough with your background as a priest of Medine. So you know about metalwork. This is not very high for you. So no, you don't notice any inscriptions or symbols or anything like that. It's plain, blank, featureless chain. Two things stand out to you. Number one, it appears to be very high purity silver. The chain is also a continuous circle. So there's no break in it. It's welded into one continuous circle. It's about a foot or so in diameter, which is why it kind of the first thing that kind of popped into your mind was dog collar. So it's kind of, if it's, even the Valavar said it looked like a necklace to him, it would actually be more like a choker type of thing rather than a necklace, if that's kind of what it is. So it would be, if someone put it around their neck, it would be pretty tight. It wouldn't be a necklace that kind of hangs down.
Right.
That's something along those lines. A choker. It could be decorative. There's no lock or anything on it. It's all just one continuous circle, and it doesn't. There's no apparent way to like tighten it either.
How common is it to have something that is 100% pure silver?
So that does exist. It wouldn't be very particular. It wouldn't be super useful for a chain in a chain form specifically because it wouldn't be very strong. You'd have to alloy it with something to make it, to give it any kind of reasonable strength. But yeah, this is, you don't think this is 100% silver necessarily, but maybe 90%, 95%, so something in that vicinity.
And character knowledge for Torin. So Torin's got some study of the undead. Would he have the connection between silver and undead?
Make a religion check.
Disadvantage, I know. 17. Take that. 17 and 18.
So there is a connection between some types of undead and silver. Not all types of undead are affected by silver. It depends on what type. It's kind of like the fire question that came up earlier. Some undead are more affected by fire than others. It's one of those strange things that's not consistent. So Torin has heard of silver being affecting certain types of undead before, yes.
I'm also thinking very slowly. Rykor, so this is a percentage of being silver, which isn't common. As you can see, there's no place for it to latch. It's one full circle, which is strange. Seeing that there were undead people that have died and then came back as something else, that would lead me to believe that they're undead. And when I was in school, though I didn't study this specifically, there is a correlation between using silver and trying to control or kill those that are undead. My thought is this individual came in from the graveyard, probably had this as a shackle. I'm going to assume somebody probably took the shackle off and probably killed your entire station. That is my guess.
That's an very interesting theory. I didn't get any reports of the body being anything other than an ordinary person. And there was absolutely no one said anything in the written reports that I have on my desk about the body looking like what we observed last night, with the pale skin and the feral eyes and the claws and the fangs and whatnot. In fact, the description that was written down in the reports was of a middle-aged male human with a bald head and a scraggly beard. Black hair shot through with gray. That seems pretty normal to me. So I suppose it's possible that this chain prevented him from transforming into what we saw last night.
Yep.
Well, let's look for more evidence to support it or disprove it, shall we? Do you
Okay.
think what the whatever it is that you're sensing, is it coming from that chain?
Yes. Yes.
It seems to be coming. Well, you know what? Make a wisdom check. No disadvantage. Straight roll, because this is not a skill check per se.
17.
17. You kind of stop for a minute and you just kind of close your eyes a little bit and let the sensations from your spell kind of wash over you and just kind of take it in. You're pretty sure that it's the area around the table that it's coming from, not from a specific object.
So it seems like the evil that I'm sensing is from this area in general, not necessarily from this contraption. But we should certainly pay attention to it.
At this, as you say that, Valavar kind of gets a thoughtful look on his face. The area, you say? Well, there might be something I can do about that. He kind of steps over to the table and places both of his hands on top of the metal table and just closes his eyes and stands there for a moment. And you start to feel this strange vibration in the air. At first, you're not even sure that you hear it. It's just kind of something that you think, is there something going on down the hall? What's going on? Are there people talking? And then it gets stronger, and it's a deep kind of thrumming, buzzing sound. As you're looking around trying to pinpoint the source of this vibration, you look around and you kind of look over back at Valavar again, and there's a light, a shining white spot of light right in the center of his forehead as his eyes are closed, and the light just is growing. Starts out at a pinpoint like an ember. It's growing larger and larger, and it becomes a sphere of almost blinding white light that just kind of emerges from his forehead. It floats forward as you're watching it, and you kind of can't even look at it directly. You have to raise your hand up and kind of avert your gaze a little. Hovers right over the table at the level of Valavar's head, and then it just flashes. The sensation that you're getting from your spell of desecration vanishes.
Figured.
And the light levels in the room return to normal. Valavar opens his eyes. Well, now we have, I suppose, a different sort of atmosphere in here. From this point forward, this examination room will now be officially a temple of Ea. Just as I suppose is fitting. This is a place where justice is done, after all.
Agreed. Is the chain, did that also get consecrated with it being in here? I'm gonna ask him because I can't tell now.
Not precisely, no. Objects in here are not consecrated now. Just the room itself. That's really the only way to combat the desecration. Something briefly made this a place where the taint of darkness was heavy upon the world. And the best way to combat that is with the light of Ea. So that's what I did.
Do you have any other questions, Rancor?
You've given me at least one interesting theory to work off of. As I said, we'll have to continue looking for evidence to support or disprove this. We'll see what other roads that perhaps leads us down. Let me take a look. Let's take a look at what else might be in that clothing, perhaps in the pockets. Maybe there's letters or notes, things of that nature. Now that apparently the light of Ea shines upon us all, we should be safe enough going through that, I think. And he kind of walks over to the pile of clothing, starts rifling through it.
Looks like there's more than a couple things of clothing, then I will also help.
It looks like a full set of clothing. Fairly heavy. It looks like a full set of pants and shirt, heavy cloak, and some various miscellaneous like pouches and like gunny sacks and things like that.
Okay, I'll help him.
Okay, make an investigation check.
With disadvantage. You're not gonna believe this.
What is it?
I got 2 20s.
220.
I want to videotape this because you're not gonna believe me. I should buy a lottery ticket. I feel like I'm cheating, so I'm gonna put these dice over here now.
If you want to stick with those, go right ahead. You know what you should do is did you un-20 them, or do they still have the 20 up?
They have the 20s up still.
Take a picture of it and you can post it to the Instagram channel.
Okay, I can do that.
Why do I impose fatigue if it doesn't work?
Yay! Right.
All right. Oh my God. All right. So what should I give you for 2 natural 20s? Let's see.
Technically, it's only 1.
Okay.
Sweet.
Okay. Let's see. What do you get for that? So you're going through. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So you're going through the clothing and you get to, the first thing you notice almost right away as you kind of lift up the pile of clothing and start sorting it out piece by piece, get that smell from those bodies that turn to smoke. Had the 2 components, sort of the greasy, sooty smell, and then the floral lemony smell. You get the floral lemony smell by itself, very faintly, but it's there on the clothing. So the sooty component to that is you don't detect that at all, just that sort of floral lemony type of scent. And it's, like I said, it's pretty faint, but you definitely get it, and you're getting it from all of the articles of clothing. As you're going through them, you don't even really have to hold it too close to your face. You kind of get a waft of it every time you pick up one of the pieces of clothing. So that's the first thing.
I'll keep that detail to myself because I don't think anybody else really smelled the smoke when we entered the building.
The other thing that you notice as you get to the shirt, there is what appears to be a ragged hole in the left breast of the shirt. There's no pocket on it, but like where a breast pocket would be, there's a hole about maybe 1.5 inches diameter, ragged. Looks almost like the edges of it were burned, but also like something pierced through it. So maybe something hot pierced through, because it does look like portions of the cloth are kind of pushed back into the interior of the shirt, as if something had penetrated through it. Edges are they seem to be charred as well. And it's a good sized hole. It's maybe like 1.5 inches in diameter. So that's the other thing that you come across. You find it's actually not something that you find, but it's something that's odd. Other than the clothing itself, there's nothing. There are pockets and pouches and stuff. They're all empty, dead empty. Like no notes, no coins, no crumbs of food, nothing.
Mhm.
They're just dead empty. They don't seem to be new. It's not like they were never worn before. They seem like they've got some wear on them. There's some like lint and dust in some of the pockets, so this clothing has seen some use. So it's not like it's brand new. All the pockets have been emptied out as far as you can tell. So it's more of a negative. You didn't find anything, but it's weird that you didn't find anything.
Makes Torin believe that the body was looted. Rykor, do you have notes about what this person looked like when they came in? Like, were there any visible causes of death or injuries that were observed?
That's the strange thing. To the untrained eye, because neither yourself nor Lord Valavar here were there for the examination, but to the untrained eye, this person appeared to have died of cold exposure on a summer's day.
Take a look at this pocket right here. I'm going to show him this pocket. I don't know if this has to do with how he died, but something sharp went through this, and it is afraid and seems to indicate that something was burning.
Rykor kind of bends over where you're indicating for him to look. His yellow eyes kind of narrow as he looks at it. He pokes his finger through the hole a couple of times. Well, that is interesting. It does almost look like a burn mark. Perhaps the two of you would like to examine the cemetery as well. It should quickly become clear if you view the scene of the crime why the responding guardsman thought he died of cold exposure, frostbite even. Some of the guardsmen even began to bandy about stories of cold Cassandra, who is a local legend, supposedly haunts the moors up north. I don't really deal in fairy tales in my line of work, so but I suppose, and he kind of looks around, I suppose every now and again fairy tales come to you, don't they?
That's
I can certainly arrange if the two of you would like to view the scene of the crime in the cemetery, I can certainly arrange that as well.
I kind of think at this point having some good closure would be good for this. This has been pretty disturbing, I'm sure, for me and for everybody else that lives here. So let's figure this out.
Very well. I think unless there's anything else that you can think of, I think I've seen enough here. More to your question as well, you asked about the cause of death, and I responded that it was frostbite. I think what you're getting at is that did he have any visible wounds on his body?
Yes.
He did not, which is another reason why the guardsman had indicated frostbite as a cause of death. Valavar says, I'm actually quite interested in seeing the cemetery right now. This mystery gets more and more interesting. How are you feeling, Torin? I see some dark
I
spots right now, and you seem to be kind of stumbling your way around a bit. No offense, but you did have a long night.
I am feeling quite tired and quite hungry, and I got slashed a couple times, so there's that.
Oh, would you like me to take a look at that for you?
If you don't mind. I think Rykor got hit too.
Indeed. Captain, would you like me to take a look at your wounds as well? And Rykor just, you can find me later, Valimar. It'll be fine. Go ahead and take a look at the gnome first. All right, so he is going to examine your wounds, your bite marks. And he is going to hit you with a cure, light or cure wounds. Let's see how much he does. Okay. So he's going to hit you with a cure wounds. Let me roll for that. Ooh. 7 points of healing. So you are up 7 hit points. Sort of, you get, as he kind of reaches out and places his hand on your shoulder, you kind of get the physical sensation that is analogous to the sphere of light that you saw, but without the visual manifestation. So what you feel emanating out from his hand, what almost feels like a sphere of warmth, kind of extend itself out of his hand and into your body. So you don't see any light this time. You just kind of feel the warmth kind of radiate in a sphere, and then whoosh, it kind of explodes through your whole body, and you just feel the remaining pain just kind of wash away. And you look down at the wounds, and you just see them closing up.
Is there a gesture in your faith that you use when you thank Ea?
A gesture? No. We like to thank Ea with meditation and prayer more than anything else.
Next time I meditate, I will do a special prayer for praying.
I'm sure he'll appreciate that, especially from a Mennonite.
So it might be good if I have at least a short rest before we head down to the cemetery. If you guys are okay holding down the fort for me so I can be less exhausted. I perform better when I'm not exhausted.
Rykor kind of turns his yellow gaze on you. Well, it doesn't have to be done right this moment. If you would like to take lodgings, we can certainly do this later this afternoon or evening. We could do it tomorrow, even if you would prefer. The crime scene has already been investigated, so it's not going anywhere, at least as far as I know.
Okay. I think I would like to look at it this evening then.
Okay. Do you have a place to rest in the meantime?
I was just gonna hit up one of the inns around. I'm not from here. Is there a place that you'd recommend?
He kind of thinks for a moment. There are three things that I would point you towards. They each have their own pros and cons. One of them actually reminds me of some other work that I need to do that has gone wanting in the face of all of this supernatural whatever it is. Depends, I suppose, on how much coin you have on hand. The first one, the top of the line one, which will cost you a good amount of coin, is just up to the north a bit, right on the green, around the fortress. It's called the Chimes on the Wind. It's by far the best inn in all of Blackshore, but it is priced accordingly. That's a short walk away. There is the inn known as Sweet Petrichor, which is at the edge of the wheat garden district. That's middle of the road. It's fairly inexpensive. Or I'm sorry, it's middle of the road in expense. But it is known to be safe and well kept. It's where a lot of the merchants who pass through Blackshore make their first choice when they have to stay overnight in lodgings. There's the Arms of Ea, and Valavar kind of smirks again. His smirk gets a little bit wider as Rykor says the name of this inn. The Arms of Ea is the closest one. It is quite inexpensive. It's near the market square. Quite inexpensive, but it can be very rowdy. Possibly to the detriment of sleep. I'm on my way, or I will be on my way to Sweet Petrichor myself. I need to take a statement from the innkeep who was recently robbed. One of his patrons was robbed not too long ago, yesterday morning, in fact. The innkeeper is a friend of the commandant of the Apian Watch, and he's requested my services on this case specifically. And as is obvious, I've been delayed by last night's happenings in getting down to that inn to take the statement. So that is something that I need to get on. And if you would like to stay at that inn, I can accompany you there and do double duty, so to speak. Again, that one's middle of the road in expense.
Thinking because I worked really hard that I deserve a good night's sleep, and I think I will go to the Sweet Petrichor.
Very well. I believe, Lord Valavar, you have some autopsy work to do here to finish. We will come and retrieve you when Master Torin is ready to go to the cemetery, and all three of us will go there together. Does that sound good to you? Valavar just kind of nods. That certainly sounds like a plan, Captain.
So when I'm up and moving around, do you want me to come back to the station?
That would be acceptable, yes.
I can do.
Very
It's
well.
been a pleasure working with you, Rykor.
Well, Rykor's going with you. Valavar's staying behind.
I still said it.
You're gonna butter him up a little bit.
Well, I mean, we didn't die together, and that's something.
Rykor just kind of nods, and he you can tell he doesn't smile very much, and you just kind of get like the ghost of a smile on his face.
Mhm.
It's almost like he's kind of fighting it down. Well, are you ready to begin? It's not too long a walk away. It's down in the wheat garden district, so
Okay.
it'll take us.
I whistle for Monty.
It'll take us perhaps 15 minutes or so to get there. So the two of you kind of set out, and you walk out the broken front doors of the watch station. There's still quite a presence of the watch out here. kind of milling about, and some of them are going in. You saw some of them kind of walking or patrolling around the hallways inside. There's more of them milling around outside. They kind of snap to a little bit when Rykor walks out, and kind of you can tell some of them were maybe loitering a little bit, and they kind of snap to and start looking like they're busy.
Of course they do.
And the two of you kind of walk out, and Rykor begins to lead you into the street and down in the southerly direction down. So if you remember Arumar Way, which is the main sort of thoroughfare, kind of runs past the watch station, and he kind of leads you in toward the southerly direction. And as the two of you don't get very far when one of the Pine guardsmen kind of runs up to the two of you, and he snaps off a salute to Rykor. Captain, I have news from the wreck, the fishing boat wreck that was reported on the North Harbor shore. Would you like to hear what we found? Rykor immediately kind of looks at you. Well, Watchman, you've got excellent timing. We were just about to head down into the wheat garden district, so you caught us just in time. Go ahead, give your report. And the guardsman you can kind of tell he's a little bit nervous. The guardsman's a little bit nervous. He's kind of got some sweat beading on his forehead. And he seems really young male human. He can't be more than like 18. You can get the sense, although you don't know exactly what their emblems of rank are, you get the sense that he's very low ranking. Yes, Inspector. We sent out a party to the reported location of the fishing boat wreck, and it was found as reported, beached and inhabited by a large fireface crab. We did manage to slay the beast. We dragged its carcass further down the beach a bit and set fire to it. And we also set fire to the wreck itself so that it would no longer be fit as habitation for pests of that sort. We did examine the wreck thoroughly before we set fire to it. At the bottom of the wreck inside, through a very large gaping hole in the hull, we did find the partially eaten remains of what appeared to be a fisherman. We found half of a fisherman, to be particular, the upper half. And it appears that it had been largely devoured, almost to a skeletal level, most likely by the crabs, judging by the amount of flesh removed and the particular wounds that we observed. We have brought that body back. We identified the wreck, the fishing boat of the fisherman commonly known around here as Spearfish, or nicknamed Spearfish. Fisherman Spearfish, I'm sure you've heard of him, Captain. He fished during the warm seasons and then worked the docks in the cold season. He was well known around the docks as a handyman and a general purpose laborer. And he made his living that way for nigh on 40 years, I believe. We went to his lodgings after we had identified him, and it appears that he has no next of kin to speak of. So his possessions were sealed into his lodgings, awaiting later distribution or disposal at the judgment of the magistrate who has taken the case. Rykor nods. Very well. reasonably well done, concise, detailed. Carry on. And the guardsman kind of looks visibly relieved and kind of rushes off. That at least answers that question. So it's not enough that we've got undead popping up in the middle of the watch station, but we also appear to have a large shark in the harbor. It seems that you brought us a bit of bad luck, Torin Wobblecog. All this started happening when you came into town. You kind of get the sense, even though he's kind of stiff, you kind of get the sense that he's attempting to make a joke. It's kind of awkward because he's kind of not like the joking type of person.
I snort and say, "You might be right, Inquisitor." Had nothing to do with it, though.
No. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't know about the shark, and the incident at the watch station probably would have gone much worse. So let's continue. Let's get you some rest, at least, as preparation for all the tasks that still remain ahead of us. And he continues to lead you on down the southerly path of the Arumar way. And in about 10 or 15 minutes, you arrive at a large, very almost for the area, it's almost palatial.